Welcome to the Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast, episode number 93.
Kieren the Fab, Adam Charles.
I got my radio voice.
No, we're a bit out of practice. It might feel seamless to some people, but I don't know. It feels like weeks since I've sat in this seat.
Well, it's been 2 weeks. We haven't recorded in 2 weeks.
That is the plural of week. Yeah, it's been weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, regular listeners would already know that we had no episodes last week due to some,
COVID isolation
rules that still have to be followed where we live. So we didn't get to record. We typically record in our fancy studio. But we couldn't because Kieren was having to isolate, and then we could have done it through Zoom or whatever, but I don't know. I think we pride ourselves a little bit on our audio, or the quality of our audio. Amazing. So we didn't want to do that. Hence, we had no episodes last week. We didn't record anything, and I think this is the first time we're actually recording an episode on the same day.
Yeah, this goes out today. So
after this, poor Kieren has to do all the editing.
It's going to be mad scramble, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
But we're talking, this topic is an interesting one. And when you told me about it, I hadn't really thought about speaking about it before. We're talking about aggression in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, aggression, being aggressive, domestic violence. I wanted to talk a little bit about being aggressive in jiu-jitsu, more from a competitive point of view, but even to some extent from a training point of view, and how important I personally think it is for your jiu-jitsu. And so we're going to go down that little rabbit hole. Do you think that you're aggressive?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm pretty aggressive.
I've gotten a few complaints, yeah. It's the complaint box at the gym is full. Kieren is too aggressive.
Yeah, I think I can be pretty aggressive, and I think it comes from competition. Are you being serious about those complaints? So hang on a minute.
Kieren's like, I haven't even seen that box. Where is it? Where's the complaint box?
Because I got some of my own. No, not really. I think I'm pretty aggressive. Depends on the day, but in general, we were talking a blanket statement. Yeah, I think my jiu-jitsu is pretty aggressive.
Yeah. And where do you think that came from?
My competitive nature, I'd say.
I mean, I was going to take the credit.
But I would also say, like, all throughout my jiu-jitsu from day one, obviously, because you taught me jiu-jitsu from day one, you've made it very, very clear to be, not only to be aggressive, but it's okay to be aggressive. Your whole philosophy around jiu-jitsu is not like, you've tried to instill in me like, no, fuck not what everyone says, but fuck the whole sentiment that it's the gentle art, fuck the everyone that, says, oh, don't use your strength and all that. And that has been a very reoccurring theme. So I think I've taken it for granted that it is part of jiu-jitsu, it's full combat, contact sport. A part of it is being aggressive in an applied technique manner, and that's something that you've just said from day one. So it's second nature to me now.
Yeah, and like let's just get the little sort of asterisks out of the way first. I'm not saying you have to be aggressive to train jiu-jitsu or to enjoy jiu-jitsu, or every time you roll it needs to be aggressive / intense or whatever. I know some people don't want that, and that's also what's cool about jiu-jitsu, that you can flow roll or whatever, or flow train for lack of a better word. But if we're talking about, performing really well, and especially competition, then you kind of have to be aggressive. And if you look at all the most successful jiu-jitsu competitors of all time, in the history of jiu-jitsu, which is what year was the first ever Worlds? Not sure, but we're only going back like 3 decades or something. In terms of a sport, it's a very short amount of time. There are not many of the GOATs, so to speak, who were not aggressive. So let's say some of the biggest names like Andre Galvao, super aggressive.
Felipe, very aggressive.
Felipe Pana. I mean, Gordon Ryan's aggressive, but he's also can come across super chilled and
his game. Yeah, his system can be. Yeah,
Nicholas Marigali, aggressive. Even little guys, the Meow brothers, Mikey Musameshi, Isaac Doladirian. Let's go a bit further back. Shanji, super aggressive. Bernardo Faria, crazy aggressive. The only sort of ones that come to my mind of people that
maybe Keenan, that's pretty chill.
No, man, even Keenan's pretty aggressive. Like, it just seems chill because he slows it down with lapels.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But, I think really the only kind of who comes across as chill would be like Hodger Gracie or Marcelo Garcia. But
maybe Eddie Bravo.
He doesn't have a choice but to be chill. He's so baked. But even, Marcelo he's known as being really chill and relaxed. I've heard stories of actually him one time was competing, and he is actually like, how some people before the match, they're in the bullpen and they're like doing the whole slapping themselves and getting psyched up and whatever. And he's just like having a nap and they're calling his name and someone had to wake him up, be like, Marcelo, fuck you on. He's like, what? He's like fumbled onto the mat. But if you watch Marcelo Garcia highlights, he's so aggressive. Like anyone who's like, no, man, he's chill. Watch his highlights. He's crazy aggressive, So when you're looking at it from performing in a competitive environment, you do have to be aggressive. I think the only way you get away with not being aggressive is if you are so far above and beyond, the level of your opponent. If it's a black belt against a white belt, man, do whatever the fuck you want, But that's obviously not how it plays out. If you're going against someone similar skill level, man, you have to be aggressive because they're going to be aggressive. You got to match that aggression and that intensity, and otherwise the match can easily be lost there. And the story that I always like is if you don't know Bernardo Faria's matches well, if you didn't come up watching his matches, watch him fight. Watch some of his fights. He's very explosive, very intense, very aggressive. And when he was like a blue belt or something like that, his training partners used to always say to him like, oh man, you use too much strength. You're too tense. You got to learn how to relax, blah, 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 blah. And he went to his coach. Bernardo's first coach was a guy called Ricardo Marques from Brazilian top team in Juiz de Fora, the city that Bernardo's from. And he went up to his coach Ricardo and he was like, oh coach, man. He might have even only been a yellow belt or something at this time because I believe Bernardo started at whatever age, like before the adult belts. He started when they were as a juvenile. And he's like, oh coach, everyone told me that I'm too aggressive and I use too much energy and I need to relax and blah, blah, blah. And his coach just goes, yeah, but are you getting tired? Like, is that aggression and energy gassing you and you're running out of energy? And Bernardo's like, no. He's like, well then keep doing it. Like, why, why would you stop? Right? Like, of course, if someone
Are you winning?
Yeah. If someone is gassing themselves in the first minute of a match, either their fitness is crazy dog shit or it's like, man, you're too tense. You need to learn to react. You're not being efficient, But if someone, man, the thing with Bernardo is like, if it's a 10-minute match roll or whatever, at minute 9, as in you've already been rolling for 9 minutes. At minute 9, he's going harder than he was at minute 1. Like, it just gets more intense, bro. Like, it's so full on. And that's not to say that he starts chill, So I really, when you're looking at it from a competitive competition point of view, you have to be aggressive. And that brings me to talking about training because of the old, you fight the way you train, and recently was John Danaher have you heard of John Danaher?
No. Who is he?
He's the guy who is, I mean, he's
Talking about Joe Rogan?
No, not that guy.
Another bald guy.
John Danaher. He's not massive. He's more well known for his fashion than his jiu-jitsu creds. But
his joke is terrible.
Anyway, I've read something recently, and it was kind of a bit more, I guess, in detail of him essentially saying that he puts heaps of, not pressure's the wrong word, but he really tries to instill into his students that that competition is just the same as training, you know, and it really hammers home that whole, well, you fight the way you train. And, you know, if you can kind of amalgamate those two things, you're then going to perform way better in competition. You're going to be less nervous and that sort of approach. So if you then think about it, you kind of need to train aggressive as well. And don't confuse aggression with like anger and animosity. That doesn't have to be the case, right? Like you can be really aggressive when you roll with that. Like doesn't mean you're being a dick. We're not going full Herbert Santos, right? If you know who that is, the guy who jumped into the crowd flying, kicking women and shit. Like dude's fucking crazy, man. You know, but you know, a perfect example is when me and Joey roll, right?
Very aggressive rolls, yeah.
Yeah, like if Joey and I are having a proper roll, you know, which, I mean, happens a lot, but now that I'm thinking about it, Joey and I are also such good friends. We, you know, quite easily, you know, sometimes we roll and just get halfway through a roll and just give up and hug, you know. I don't know, we'll make a joke or something, but like when Joey and I roll hard, man, like it's super aggressive, but there's no animosity, right? The second the buzzer ends, like that's it, it's over. So aggressive doesn't mean angry or that you're trying to hurt your opponent. I guess maybe intensity could even be a better word, right? So I've been talking for a long time. People are sick of my voice. So before I go into the next thing I want to say, which is some ways you can change your training, I want to talk about some things that you as just the individual can do, but also I know majority of our listeners aren't necessarily other gym owners or coaches looking for, you know, how do I run, structure a class, but I'll also talk about, you know, some of my favorite drills that I do for competition specific training to try to emulate this. These are drills that I've either come up with or we used to do back at Alliance in Sao Paulo with Fabio and all those guys. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But before that, what do you think is, you know, let's say a lower belt came to you, right? A lower belt,
a white belt.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny not to get off topic, but that's also why I try to be not stingy with my belts, but you know, if I'm giving out a blue belt, which by default is the easiest belt to get, right? I guess white belt, technically, you just got to walk in the door. But I mean, you know, it's the easiest belt to grade to. Yeah. It still is, you know, I remember when I was a white belt and I looked up to blue belts who, when I rolled with them, I couldn't do anything. And I remember thinking like, how am I supposed to, like, it's not even possible. How am I ever supposed to beat that and get that good? Like, you know, and obviously it's possible, you know, but so even as a blue belt, you are, by default, some level of an authority figure that people will, as time goes on, ask you questions. So if a white belt came up to you, or even another blue belt, if anyone came up to you, maybe it's even a purple belt and they've just rolled with you or they've seen you compete and they know that you're aggressive and intense and they said, man, like, how do you do that? How do you switch that? Like, got any advice for me to be more sort of intense, aggressive with my jiu-jitsu? What would you say to them?
I've tried a few different things. But one that I've been working on lately.
Smelling salts? The shit. What is that shit that weightlifters, like powerlifters
sniff? Smelling salts, yeah.
Smelling salts? That can't be good for you, right?
I don't know.
Is it considered a banned substance?
No, I don't think so.
So like in the Olympics, can weightlifters
I think they do. I think they do.
Really?
I think so. I'm not sure. We'll have to look into that, I suppose. But I know it's in powerlifting, it's completely fine.
Yeah, because you see it all the time in strongman competitions and everything. Yeah.
Have you smelled it before?
No, I
fuck, it burns, man. That's why they're like, whoa, because it burns. Like it fucking
like your nostrils or your brain.
Oh, bro, both. It really hurts.
You've smelled it before?
Yeah.
But have you used it to train or you just
yeah.
And so what? It just gets you going like
yeah. I used to train with a powerlifter who recently, like around the same time as I got into jiu-jitsu, he started getting into wrestling, like Greco-Roman wrestling, and he's become very, very good. So people in the Sydney area might know him. His name's Amir, and he's a powerlifter. The dude's shredded. So I used to train with him like a long time ago, years and years ago. And I would sniff his salts and fucking fucking get amongst it. We'd fucking
just like cut that. I love that. And,
sniff his salts.
I used to sniff his salts.
Mate, just I can give it all a sniff. But yeah, the aggression thing, right? So when I'm competing, I try to get myself in a mindset of like making myself believe it's real. Insofar as if they choke me, I'm not going to wake up. You know what I mean? Like it's like an actual combat.
Like it's actual
combat.
Death,
I obviously still like operate within the rules, but I try to get myself in the mental like model of, or if I'm in a bad position, for example, I tell myself, no, I need to escape. I don't want to be here anymore. I need to escape. It's like there's urgency. There's consequences if I don't escape. Like fuck the clock, fuck the fact that it's a simulated environment. Just try and make it real. And when I'm in a dominant position and I need to finish, in my mind I'm just saying kill, like fucking finish. You know what I mean? Like kill. Like it's a bit extreme and it's a bit like, well, this guy's a fucking sociopath. Like he's a psychopath, man. Like, but you just try and get yourself into that mindset of like there are consequences. It is real. And you don't need to be scared or whatever, but it helps. I don't know. And just in your mind, like fucking kill, like dominate. Like you have to win at all costs within the rules. Everything's within the rules. Again, that little asterisk, I want to be very clear. I don't, I'm not biting people. I'm not doing a Mike Tyson. I'm not fucking dropping elbows. However, yesterday I dropped three different people, fucking smashed them with an elbow in the temple.
Ya?
Three, like same fucking thing.
God damn.
3 different people. Sorry to those people.
God damn. Do you think that came from the military? Do they?
No, not really. They don't. Well, yeah. Look, maybe it does. Like the whole. You know how you were saying like you need to train the way you fight. Yeah. That's a very, very common thing. Like that's a very common saying in the Navy. And it's actually like a motto in certain bases, and certain ships have that motto. And the US Navy is very, very big on it. And they have a phrase in the US Navy called fight tonight. So basically it's very similar, but it basically means that you need to operate as though you're going to war tonight.
Yeah.
So everything you do, all your gear preparation, the way you treat your training, the way you have your everything that you do needs to be geared toward the fact that you are going to World War III tonight. And it's the same in jiu-jitsu. You can operate the same. You need to train the way you're going to fight, like fight tonight. And it's just summarized really, really well in that one sentence. I had a boss that was like really big on that and would always be like, fight tonight. So maybe. And
you were like, Fortnite?
Fortnite?
I didn't know we were allowed to play that
here. Yeah.
So but then how do you, okay, like I get that for competition, but even so then.
In the gym, I just want to fucking win. I just want to win. I just want to be the best. Like I just want to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to do, it doesn't matter that it's just training. It's just a role. Obviously, I'm not going to let my arm break anymore. I've gotten better at that. There's certain things I concede. Like, there's levels to it. You got to have common sense. Everything I'm saying, you got to have common sense. And that's the last caveat I'll give. But when you're training, like you just have to want to fucking win. Even if someone's a higher belt than you, even when I'm rolling with you, I want to win. But
that's even something that not through any fault of your own, but that was something I had to say to you that we said in a previous podcast. Not that you didn't ever, like you've always had a semi-ish, press forward style. Let's start with that. Calling it like you always like to push forward, right? Which I guess is almost like the root of what I guess I'm trying to say by being aggressive, always being on the offensive.
Yeah.
But then, I remember I had to say to you, like, man, when you roll with me, like roll properly, you don't have to. And then it was like that later that day, you came hard, bro. And now whenever we roll, like I said, you roll with me, you don't look at me and go, oh, he's a black belt. So that sort of like unspoken bit of respect. It's like, no. Like,
I need to get that tap. I'm fucking still hunting that first tap, boy. I reckon once I get one, the confidence will be there. You know.
I wonder if when you get, you mean as in like
the floodgates will open? Yeah, bro. It's kind of like, have you ever seen that?
I wonder if you'll get that first one, and then I'll be like, yeah, good job. But then I'll be like, oh, let's go, bro.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's go. Maybe. Or maybe I'll just like, you just see me do the whole, have you seen how jiu-jitsu guys retire from competition? Like so the Worlds were just.
No, like, I haven't.
The Worlds were just a couple of weeks ago, right? We
Yeah.
had two big names retire, Shanji and
I saw that on
Ronaldo.
Instagram and IBJJF, yeah.
Yeah, and so the way they retire at the end of the match is they kind of just lay their belt on the mat and, you know, kind of whatever they're saying to themselves. Like, so for example, like Shanji laid his belt, like once the match was over, laid his belt on the mat and kind of put his head on the mat and he was crying and everything. Like Shanji's, I still believe, I could be wrong, but I believe he's still currently the greatest heavyweight of all time, I think. I might be wrong, but he's anyway, like as in like won the most world titles at heavyweight.
Got you.
I could be wrong, but I think he's like 5 or something. And yeah, and then like, you know, so he's obviously saying whatever he's saying to himself and then while the belt's on the mat, and then he ends up putting it back on to have the other dude's hand raised, right? But yeah, you get that first tap and then you see me lay my belt on the mat.
And then someone raises my hand.
Take the key to the gym off my key ring, give it to you.
I've never subbed the black belt. It's still something I haven't done yet.
I remember.
Like a legitimate sub.
I remember, yeah. When I was a blue belt, I was rolling once with Lel Nogueira, who's a multiple world champion at like super heavy or whatever. He used to close out with Bernardo, and it was specific training, so it doesn't count, right? But so I started on his back, and I remember it was all fun and games because I remember when we started, and he intentionally let me get like a bit deeper on the collar or whatever it was than he should have. And then, you know, and I've done this with my students before where
you did it with me once.
Well, kind of let something happen. And then I realized that, I let that go on. I let that too far. Yeah. And then I really start fighting. Yeah. And then I can't get out. And it was the same thing. And then I think I switched to a bow and arrow or something. And yeah, so it wasn't a legitimate sub, but I remember like after he tapped, he was laughing. Everyone was laughing, but he was like, fuck, that's like the first time a blue belt's tapped me since I've been a black belt and everything. Knew it wasn't real, but I was like, I'll still take it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So yeah, okay, anyway, being aggressive, what can you do? Like, you know, how can you teach yourself to press forward, to be more aggressive? Well, firstly, like why it's super important as well, actually, before we go into some drills, why is it super important? Well, it's very difficult to defend something and attack at the same time, right? So it's the classic saying of the best defense is a good offense, right? And it really is true. But when you're talking about even just your training, how it can help you is, let's say you do something very simple, right? So let's, in terms of to become more aggressive, you could just simply go, okay, I'm just going to nonstop attack submissions, even when maybe it's not even there. I'm just going to fucking Hail Mary submissions, everything, left, right, and center. In the beginning, it's probably going to have some negative effects on your jiu-jitsu. Yep. To be honest, any new skill you try to implement in your jiu-jitsu usually results in a immediate step back. But it's like 1 step back, 2 steps forward sort of thing. You know, if all of a sudden, like let's say something that you can do if you're drilling it, but in a roll, if I said to you like, oh man, like let's work on bearing bolos or something.
Oh God.
Right? That's like you can invert, you can do a bolo when we're drilling if it's the technique that's being taught that day, but like, are you going to bolo in a roll? Probably not, right? So if all of a sudden you started to bolo, you're probably going to get passed, get your back taken, get submitted by people who in a regular roll wouldn't, right? So in other words, it's usually a new skill you try to implement is an immediate step backwards. So even something like if I said, man, I just want you to nonstop, like if more than 10 seconds has elapsed without you attempting a submission, like you're failing, like just nonstop attack submissions, right? Fucking I don't care where you are, what it is, just go for it. Okay. In the beginning, it will be an immediate step back in your jiu-jitsu, right? However, what will start happening is you're going to start learning how to recover from failed submissions, right? And then all of a sudden, you attacking an armbar that isn't there isn't going to be you getting your guard pass. It's then going to, like, once the bullshit gets weeded out from experience doing it. So what I mean by the bullshit is that immediate step back of it's attempting the armbar and then getting your guard pass. And all of a sudden, you know, it's like a broth, bro. I'm making a broth and I've like simmered away all the bullshit. Now I've just left with this reduction of goodness, right? And that goodness is now just your ability to offensively attack someone and leave them with a defensive option, and that's it.
Got you.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Right? And then the worlds that just went past, like now is 2 weeks ago from the time we're recording. So, man, like right at the start of the lightweight final was Mika Galvão and Tai Rotolo. And Mika just attacked this, like, the platter was so sick, like was a really quick, aggressive attack. And, okay, Tai got out, but it wasn't like that resulted in Mika just getting his guard passed, right? But that whole 30 seconds or whatever it was exchange is Tai not being able to put pressure to pass Mika's guard. It's him, like the only thing Tai's doing is working on not getting submitted, right? So, I mean, that is a simple way to become more aggressive in your jiu-jitsu. Just say to yourself, okay, man, like any new skill, there's going to be a step backwards, be humble. Don't think like, you know, you got to be willing to get past or whatever and go, I'm just going to nonstop attack submissions. Like if it's a 5-minute roll, I'm at least attacking 10 submissions, for example, like one every 30 seconds. Honestly, man, try it tonight when you train. Let's say you know, obviously, I mean, if you're mount on the bottom, don't be that dude. Don't try wrist lock them, cross collar choke them from the bottom, right? But man, honestly, try it. Okay. Let's say if you're rolling tonight and you're closed guard, for example, man, well, you got heaps. You got cross collar chokes, arm bars, triangles, the platters, you know, all the other variations of cross collar chokes, lapel chokes, you know, there's even wrist locks there. There's Kimuras, guillotines, like so many, right? Honestly, just be like, okay, just say to yourself, imagine it's only, you know, multiple 30-second rounds. There's no points. And it's like, well, I've got to get a submission in 30 seconds or I lose the match. And I guarantee you'll instantly see how that transforms your jiu-jitsu to be more aggressive and how much offensive capabilities are taken away from your partner. I guarantee you, try that as a very simple way. Not that you need advice to be more aggressive.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good.
But honestly, that's one way that anyone listening to this who's like, okay, but how do I be more aggressive? I'm not naturally an aggressive person. I hear you. I am not aggressive in my jiu-jitsu really at all. Like I'm definitely can easily be that sort of chill and wait for them to do something sort of person. But if you're like me and you want to be more aggressive, honestly, try that. Just 100%. Say, okay, I need to throw up a submission every 30 seconds. You know, look at the clock, whatever the timer is, or at least, okay, I don't know, at least 1 minute. If it's a 5-minute round and you haven't attempted 5 submissions, but honestly, you'll see how quickly that makes your jiu-jitsu more aggressive. That doesn't mean, like I said at the start, I'm not talking about being angry. I'm not talking about
or violent or whatever.
Violent, or trying to hurt them. But honestly, for example, this will only make sense to you and any of our students who train at the gym. But so we got a couple of guys in the gym, but one in particular, Jonas, right? Think about when you're rolling with Jonas. Jonas is someone who's very good at his guard's very good and he's very good at arm bars and triangles. Mm-hmm. When you roll with Jonas, doesn't it feel like you're doing nothing but trying not to get armbarred and triangled?
Constantly throwing it up. Constantly
like
looking for it.
you're not. It's not even like, oh, it's hard to pass Jonas. It's like, man, it is hard to not get armbarred and triangled. And it's okay, he's good at them, but it's not. I'm not trying to take
not
anything
just
away
that.
from him.
Yeah.
It's not like he's got these crazy intricate ways. Jonas is a blue belt, by the way. It's not like he's got these crazy next level ways to set them up and, I didn't see that coming or whatever. It's like he's just relentless. But like, do you ever feel like Jonas is trying to hurt you, or is it, or you wouldn't even associate it with him being aggressive. You're just like, man, he's just constantly
relentless,
throwing them up. And because he throws them up so often, he's very proficient at not getting past from a failed armbar, right? But that's a perfect example, right? When you roll with Jonas, you would describe his guard as very aggressive, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so if you or anyone listening said, okay, how can I be more aggressive? Do that. Honestly, be like, let's narrow it down to a very simple position when you're playing guard or closed guard. Just, I don't care, man. Just throw up submissions. Yeah, there might be an immediate back step in your jiu-jitsu in the sense that you might, get past in 10 seconds, but, then do it again. And then obviously that's going to get whittled out. And then you'll be left with this reduction of a beautiful, aggressive guard.
Oh, back to the broth?
Yeah, back to the broth, back to the jus, right? Yeah, right? So that's one way you can become more aggressive, right? And you can put that into any offensive position. Next time you're at mount on someone, right, just, I get asked this all the time. Oh, I'm on mount. What can I do when someone's just like got their arms crossed and
mount to juggle?
Yeah. Well, yeah, just anything, bro. Yeah. Like just, okay, well, I'm just going to start attacking Americana, switch to an armbar, even if it's, not there in little air quotes. And then all of a sudden you're going to find it is there, or they turn and give you their back or whatever.
Yeah.
And
that's my fucking mount approach, is to just take the back. Wait till they do something. Take the back. Yeah. It's horrible.
But they're only going to do something if
you attack it.
If you give them, you need to put them in a position where exposing their back is the lesser evil for them. Right?
Otherwise they get Americaned or they get subbed in another fashion. Insert submission here.
Yeah.
I like that. The relentless pursuit of submissions always.
Yeah. And because that's a very black and white way to implement it into your jiu-jitsu, rather than, if you say something like, I don't want you to I just constantly want you to press forward, just pass the guard, pass the guard, pass the guard. Okay, but like that's not, it's a little bit more dynamic than that, but it's something like a submission has a very clear sort of end goal, so not that passing the guard doesn't have the end goal, but you can easily settle into someone's guard. But if I said to you, man, just non-stop attacking submissions, it's very easy to sort of digest that information and go, okay, that's something I can go and try to do, The other one I wanted to say is also just you need to, if we go back to talking about you fight the way that you train, a big mistake is not starting the roll like straight away. And what I mean by that is people, high five knuckles and then they kind of chill or whatever. And that, as years go on, as time goes on, that's how then you go compete. Hold yourself accountable as well. Go, okay, in this first 10 seconds, I need to go for something. None of this sort of like dancing around, whether you're starting standing or on your knees, just, man, make it like hold yourself accountable the same way that you often as a beginner literally need to remind yourself to breathe because it's a new skill that you're in. Breathing isn't, but like, well, no, I guess like breathing while you're training is a new skill you're having to implement. So can be attacking like something in 10 seconds. Maybe a boxer, imagine if a boxing coach says to you, all right, within the first 10 seconds, I need you to throw a punch. I don't care what fucking punch, just throw one within the first 10 seconds. Even if it's a little jab, like something, okay? Same sort of thing. Go, okay, high five knuckles within the first 10 seconds. I need to, I'm going to attack something, whether it's a sub, a sweep, a pass, like arm drag, whatever. Just one attack, straight away attack, right? And I think before talking about some specific drills you can do, there are two very simple things that you, regardless of how your coach is structuring the class or whatever, that you can do to become more aggressive. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But let's talk about by far my favorite, and by that I mean my most hated drill that breeds aggression, right? And it is, it's so hard.
It's shit.
It's so hard.
I hate it.
But it's really, really good. All right. So I'm going to explain it, spell it out for people. If you design your own training, or if you're an instructor, or if you train with friends, right, I'm going to tell you how to structure this training and the idea behind it. Okay. So what you're going to do with your partner is you're doing 15-second rounds, which sounds easy, but it's fucking not. 15-second rounds, okay? The round starts standing, and the idea is one person is pulling guard to establish their guard, and the other person is not wanting to end up in an established guard, and they're wanting to blitz and pass, okay? You could think about this one or two ways. The way it was always taught to me and the way we did it in Brazil was that we were simulating the start of the match, right? For some people, I'll explain that, but I find sometimes that takes more time to explain that to your students and get it into their head that that's what they're trying to do. You could also think about it that the person pulling guard is just trying to pull guard and save face. They're just trying to run out the clock, whereas the person on top needs to pass to win, right? You could also think about it as the last 15 seconds of the match. But we were always taught that it's the start of the match, and it has lots of benefits, right? One benefit is that it puts the guard puller on the back foot. Like you're setting the tone of the match, not necessarily the pace, but the tone. Because for the average person, when you go compete, you don't know who you're fighting. So it's not like you can prepare a game plan for this person. You have no idea what they're going to do, right? But so if you go in there and for the first 15 seconds, you are like a bull in a china shop, just going ham, right? I guarantee there's really only kind of two outcomes. Either A, you're going to pass their guard, fucking awesome, or B, you might not pass their guard, but I guarantee you that dude's then sitting there going, holy fucking shit. I'm like 10 seconds in and this guy's, man, I can't do this for another X amount of minutes. He doesn't know that you can't maintain that pace. Maybe you can, but he doesn't know that, right? So it's already going to give you a leg up on the mental battle. Of course, there's a third option that it not backfires, but maybe you get unlucky and you get caught or they sweep you, or of course that can happen. But the idea is you're either going to pass or you're mentally getting a leg up on them. So how do you do this drill in training, all right? So 15-second rounds, you establish who's pulling guard. Standard rules, they need a grip to pull guard. So the person who's going to be passing, you're not trying to defend the guard pull. There's a little bit of working together. You essentially let them make their grip. So you're not dancing, ducking around. You let them make their grip and pull guard. At the same time, the person who's pulling guard, you don't mess around, waiting. Like it's a 15-second round. Just make your grip and pull guard, right? And you're trying to establish your guard or sweep and submit them if you can. But the idea is, there's no real winner or loser, but the idea is if the person pulls guard and doesn't get past, they would have won. What makes this drill so punishing is it's a 15-second round and then you have a 5-second interval, which is just for you to stand back up and then the other person pulls guard, right? So you're alternating guard pulling. Okay, so you're essentially doing kind of like a jiu-jitsu equivalent of sprints. You're doing 15-second rounds, right? How many rounds? Well, that's up to you. Sometimes we used to do 20 at a time and then you'd change partners. So you would have essentially 10, you'd pull guard 10 times and pass 10 times. And it is one of the best drills to really breed that aggression and particularly the importance of being aggressive for 10, 15 seconds. And you've heard me say this to you going into competitions. I'll be like, man, the first 10, 15 seconds, I don't care. Just be a bully for the first 10, 15 seconds. You can't overestimate the value of like the psychological part of a jiu-jitsu match or a lot of sports, right? If you can just bully them, even if it isn't, because obviously in the drill, it's under the drill set, a particular person who's pulling guard. You go into the match, of course, he's not necessarily going to pull guard. He's not necessarily going to walk out, make a grip and pull guard. But I guarantee you, if the idea is for 10, 15 seconds, you are just like, almost like it's a 100-meter sprint for the first 10, 15 seconds, I guarantee you are then winning the mental battle that they're going, fuck, bro.
Yeah. I've made heaps of people, like, I've started matches where I've taken that approach and just bullied them, pull on their collar, like try and trip them, just be a bully, not necessarily go for something specific, but just bully them around the mat. And I've had people just pull guard. After that first like 15, 20 seconds, you're like, nah, fuck this, pulling guard.
Yeah.
And I get what I want because I want to be on top.
Yeah.
So you can force them into doing something that maybe they were like on the fence about, maybe they wanted to go for a takedown.
Yeah, that's right.
They pull guard.
Yep. And this, the only way you're then really going to be able to go do this in a competition is if you do it in your training, right? So whenever you start your roll, okay, give yourself, this is another thing you can add. I spoke about relentlessly attacking submissions as a way to learn how to be more aggressive. I said, hold yourself accountable. Say within the first 10 seconds, I need to attack something. We can also add to that saying, okay, for the first 10 seconds, you just need to be like it's a sprint and then settle into your roll. Okay. There are 3 things that you can implement again, without your instructor needing to change anything. If you're just a white belt, blue belt, whatever belt listening, but you're just at the whimsy of however your coach is running the class, well, these are things you can do unless you're at a gym where you don't roll. Right? These are things you can do to become more aggressive. But yeah, that drill in particular is one that I love but hate so much.
It is a lot.
It's really hard.
It hurts.
It sounds not difficult, but I
hurts
promise you, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, and after 10 rounds, you're fried.
Yeah, and we do it as a minimum 10. I think we do 10,
and then
10 rounds
partners.
and then change partners.
Yeah. And like you get to the point where you're toward the end of the exercise, the drill, and then you accidentally end up in close guard and you just fucking give up. You're like, fuck it.
Yeah. And, and I'll be honest as well, this drill definitely helps a lot if the coach is not, like if the coach is coaching and not training. Yeah. Because it definitely helps a lot to have eyes on you yelling at you. Yeah. I find.
Yes.
Because the amount of times that I'll be coaching this drill and I'll be like, but don't go, man, you just went into his close guard.
Yeah.
Passing close guard in 15 seconds is almost impossible.
Yeah.
I referenced Mika Galvao and Tai earlier. In the last minute 20, I think it was, of their match, Mika had more or less dominated the whole match, but that had only resulted in being up by 2 points, right? Because he had 2 points for a sweep. He had multiple advantages. And he had taken the back, but didn't get points for it, right? So there was.
I need to go back and watch this.
It's a good match. So there was only essentially a minute left, and Tai was in Mika's close guard. That's 2 points to 0, ignoring advantages. So if Tai had passed Mika's guard, he would have won the match, right? And he couldn't even get out of it. I say couldn't even get out of his close guard as if it's like easy when you're against the guy who just became the youngest black belt world champion ever. But my point is, it's like, well, man, like if it can be difficult to do in a minute, you're not passing the close guard in 15 seconds, right? And it's also just, I say this to my students all the time as well about how to approach passing. The other benefit that this drill has as well is trying to break that mistake, that habit that everyone has, which is that when they start a roll and they're the default person on top, because maybe they're starting on their knees and you have that casual high five knuckles, one dude sits on his butt, and we so commonly step into our partner's guard, more or less let them establish whatever freaking grips and everything they want, and then go. You know, it's like, no, like, and I say to my students, you don't want to be in their guard. You want them in your pass, right? So don't step into their guard, let them establish their guard, and then you start passing. No, you should be establishing your pass. They should be scrambling to feel like they can even have a guard. So this drill also helps with that.
I still do this. I catch myself doing this all the time. Everyone does it,
man. Everyone does it.
And then all of a sudden you're in like a deep collar sleeve with the guy that plays collar sleeve. Yeah. And you're like, fuck, why? Yeah, why did I let them get this?
Think about the times that you're in someone's guard, that you've stepped in it, they've established all this shit, and then you've spent 30 seconds breaking all these grips, blah, 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 to get to now you've got double pants grip, and then you did your bullfighter pass.
Yep.
It's like, well, why didn't, at the start, when there were 0 grips, why didn't you even try to step in, grab double pants and go? You didn't even try. You just stepped in, let them do whatever.
Yeah.
So this drill also helps break that.
It's a shit habit. It's a shit habit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, everyone does it, especially if you're having just more of a cruisy sort of role or training session.
But then you get deep into something and then you're like, fuck, I can't get out.
Yeah, no. Like Leon Nogueira in my bow and arrow choke. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So by far one of the best drills, definitely a horrible, horrible drill. But I implore everyone to.
It's going to help with that intensity, that aggression, that, you know.
Yeah, man. And yeah, if you look, just all the top level guys, they're super, super aggressive. You kind of have to be, man. Like, I feel like it just, if you want to perform in competition, it just comes with the nature of the sport. It'd be like telling a runner that they don't need to be fast. It's like, bro, you just got to be fucking fast. Like, there's no, you want to win, you got to be fast, right? And it's like you kind of got to be aggressive. And you mentioned at the start how I would always say to you that you don't have to feel bad about it. Okay, it's all within context. If you're training with a new person or you're training with, someone who's 40 kilos lighter than you or whatever, it's all. I cast a wide net of common sense, so it's all with common sense. But yeah, it's a full contact combat sport. It just doesn't have striking in it. Like if sometimes people will think about it like this, like let's say, I don't know, like maybe, oh man, I had him in this rear naked choke and, and he didn't tap. And I say, well, did you squeeze as hard as you can? No, I had more. Well, man, that's your fault, bro. You should have squeezed harder. Like,
did you crank the fuck out of his neck?
Yeah. Did you try and make sure he couldn't feel his toes anymore?
Did you smother him?
But like, there's nothing wrong with, with common sense. There's nothing wrong with using 100% of your physical attributes. And whenever people complain saying like, oh, that was too hard or this or whatever. Okay, again, if we're talking about training and competition is a little bit different than the way you would apply a submission in training to in competition, or the way you might, dump someone with a double leg in training opposed to competition, right? Yes, there are some slight differences, but just as a whole, saying that something was, too hard or whatever, or you're putting too much pressure or something. Be like, imagine saying to a boxer, oh man, you punched me too hard. Like, well, you're fucking lucky I didn't punch you harder, bro. Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people need to be cool with it being a full contact combat sport that, man, if it's well within the rules for me to put like
shoulder pressure
my shoulder on your face or on your neck or whatever. Again, in this Ty Mika fight, you could hear Ty's coach. I don't know who was coaching him. It wasn't Galval. I'm not sure who it was who was coaching him, but
Sorry, Mika? Who was coaching Mika?
Sorry, who was coaching Ty?
Oh,
it
right.
wasn't Andre Galval because he's from Atos. I don't know who was coaching him, but I literally heard at one point him say while Tar was trying to pass, he was like, yeah, make it uncomfortable for him. Yeah, that's it. Beautiful, Tar. He was like, yeah, put your knuckles in his neck.
Yep.
Make it uncomfortable. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? And yeah, again, with context, it's got to be appropriate for who you're training with. But if you have that good relationship with, if it's competition, it doesn't matter, right? Because you signed a waiver, they signed a waiver, it's go time. But yeah, if it's your training partner, you have to make sure it's with the right training partner. But I would hope, I feel anyone who is yet to find that training partner that they can essentially have comp roles with and have no animosity, no
hesitation,
no aggression in the negative connotation of the word. If anyone who doesn't have that training partner yet, man, I feel sorry for you because you're missing out. It's one of the best things. You need a training partner that you have that you can go hard with, and it's nothing but love. And for me, that's Joey at the moment. Obviously, you and I roll super hard with, there's a bit more of a skill difference.
I was about to say, I mean, it's hard for me, but not so much for you.
I mean, I remember
you don't need to feel bad about doing bad things to me.
I remember, not that long ago, I got you in that butcher shop choke. And I remember after you tapped, I was just like, I'm so sorry, bro. Like, for those who don't know, it's essentially a shin to the throat choke. It's not a very friendly choke. But it's the sort of one that with our relationship, I knew you'd be fine with, but I still felt bad. When you tapped, I was like, bro, I think I apologized like 10 times. I was like, I'm so sorry. I just had to, but I'm so sorry.
I've been working on like knee on belly pressure at the moment, right in the sternum, because previously it hasn't been very good. And whenever I like make someone tap from it, I feel real bad.
Well, they should feel bad from tapping from it.
It's like
the butcher shop's an actual submission.
That's not a sub.
Knee to solar plexus is not a submission. They should feel bad about tapping.
But when you hold them there and you're heavier, or like not even heavier, but you got it real deep. And they can't get out.
Still, But, I like that you're working on your knee on belly discomfort.
I'm just like, sorry, man. Smashing the white.
Oh, that reminds me. Stop turning up to the kids' class and fucking do a knee on belly to the kids.
They need to learn. They need to learn young.
Learn
early. I'm the boss. I'm the big dog.
But please, guys, be more aggressive, be more intense, and you can do it without, like I said, the negative connotations of the word. So many examples we spoke about today, and for any of my students listening, the perfect example is, man, roll with Jonas. Like, how would you describe his guard? Aggressive. How would you describe Jonas? Fucking nicest dude in the gym. He's super chill.
Guy.
Looks like a chill surfer dude.
Dude.
You don't have to. I don't mean as in the negative
100%.
connotations of the word.
100%.
So just to recap, guys, a simple one. Go do it next training session after this. Every 30 seconds or more, just attack submissions, just nonstop attack submissions. Yes, don't be upset that it might result in you feeling like your jiu-jitsu is gone backwards, because any new skill you implement usually comes at a loss in the beginning, right? But that's one you can implement. You can hold yourself accountable, go, okay, within the first 10 seconds of the roll, I got to attack something, anything. Right? Whatever it is. You could also implement, okay, for the first 10, 15 seconds, it's a sprint, and then I'll settle in. Like, look at like when you look at even a marathon race, right? There's usually a little bit of a sprint at the start, right? That's actually a really perfect analogy. God, I haven't dropped. I've got to up my analogy game, Kieren. I feel like I'm falling behind. But that's kind of a perfect analogy, right? Like you look at, whether it's a marathon or even a shorter distance race, like an 800 meter or whatever, there was a little bit of a sprint race, mini race at the start, right? Because that can set your track position, or it can set the tone or whatever right in the beginning, right? You can't maintain that for the whole 800 meters or you'll collapse. Right. So similar sort of thing. Try that. Go, okay, for the first 10, 15 seconds, this is that initial like, okay, the race has started, and then you settle in, And then there's the specific drill. If anyone is making their own training with friends, if you're a coach, try that, right? And you're going to love it and hate it. It's so good.
I hate it.
But there's so many other things you can do, right? There's
very similar drills.
We used to do. I remember one time leading up to Worlds at the end of class for Langy, we all like essentially lined up, and just like the Langy himself just got fucking Shark Tanked like non-stop 30-second rounds, everyone trying to pass his guard, like just going in and hammering him. And, you know, it was more training for him, but for me, it was also like, it was also training as in, okay, well, I'm going in for a 30-second round. Let's go. Like
sprint.
Super aggressive sprint, you know? So there's lots of little things you can do, but get aggressive without being angry.
Don't be a dick, but be aggressive.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, to close out the episode, I want to give a shout out to our latest Patreon, Rami. Rami, legend. Thank you so much for joining the Patreon crew. And if you want to join Rami and others on Patreon, you can find our Patreon over at our Instagram bio. I've updated our link tree, so check it out for, I don't know, it's been updated. It's cool. Looks good. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out.
Kieren's like, I changed the order of the links. It's really cool.
I changed up the links, made it a little bit more clean, a little bit more presentable. So, and you can also submit a question to the show. Our next Q&A.
Holy shit.
We're episode 93. It's episode 100's coming up, which we may do a Q&A.
We're wearing Mankini's episode.
We're doing something special for 100. We're not sure yet, but we'll be surprised. But yeah, wait for episode 100 and submit a question to the show over at our Instagram, which if you just type in Beyond Jiu Jitsu Podcast, you'll find it on Instagram.
You sure will, guys. Thanks so much for listening. Yes, any questions, shoot them through. Otherwise, apologies again for no episodes last week. Kieren's fault.
We're coming in hot.
Yeah. Until next time.